Welcome back to another Uncut Movie Review. Today we have Nosferatu. Is this the latest installment for the movie of the year?
Come to me.
The movie is a remake of the 1922 remake of the same name, which was a silent film, Nosferatu, which, if you've seen SpongeBob SquarePants, they'll tell you he's standing there, menacingly. Bill Skarsgard stars as Nosferatu, as Dracula. Lily Rose-Depp is a character who summons Nosferatu out of slumber to be with her accidentally because she's lonely, and she is after companionship, not realizing that she has literally risen Dracula from the dead and that he's going to come back and pretty much reclaim her soul as his. Nicholas Hoult is Lily Rose-Depp's husband in this. He's summoned to sell a house to Count Dracula by his boss, who is actually in leagues with Dracula, and the director of the movie, Robert Eggars. Now, if you're across his work, you would know that he has a specific type of way of directing movies that he loves to do. The Lighthouse, The Northman, and The Witch. Now, we love Robert Eggars' work. The Northman is one of our most favourite movies ever. Surprise, surprise, it had another Skarsgard brother in that. That had Alexander, and that was a great, great movie. And you can tell the themes are very similar, and he was pretty much made to make a movie like Nosferatu. When you go back and see clips of the original Nosferatu in 1922, the similarities between that and this movie, and the similarity between that and his other movies that he's done in the way that they're directed and the lighting and in the way he gets the characters to be sculpted in these movies, you could tell that he was created just to make this Nosferatu movie. Things that work so well in this movie. I mean, from the get-go, you see the high quality in acting that all the characters are doing in this. I felt Lily Rose-Depp's character was almost like a Broadway character at some points in this movie, the way she was almost overacting, but it was to bring out so much desperation in her because she's being literally haunted by this Dracula-like character. And if you ever need just a menacing-looking character, someone to look like absolute shit, or someone to set the scene of something crazy happening or something weird happening, you get Bill Skarsgard in. You literally get this man in and he just sets the tone for you, whether it's he's using his actual face or he's using a cosmetically made up face and body. And he sets the tone for any movie to be weird and just to be outlandish.
This seems to be Bill Skarsgard's fucking bread and butter these days. Dress up as something crazy and something crazy will happen on screen. The entire movie, it's like prepping you. It's like almost like a MK Ultra thing. It's like prepping you to be scared and prepping you to think he's around the corner. Nosferatu is around the corner. You know he's in the next scene, or you know he's coming to get you. This is how good this kind of preparation was in this whole film. And not to mention, as Geordie's already said, Lily Rose-Depp's, her idea of someone being possessed, it was actually ridiculous. It was to a point where I was just laughing because I was like, what am I watching?
It does look quite ridiculous at some point. I think she must have just watched videos of people having epileptic fits for like hours and been like, that's what I'm going to go for.
She like mixed it between The Conjuring and epileptic episodes.
Today, Junior?
That's the two things she mixed it with. It was kind of almost throwing you off a little bit watching it. You were like, I'm scared, but I'm also just laughing my ass off simultaneously.
She was going so well, and then it just went like a little bit above and beyond. And you're like, okay, now it's sort of getting to a point where I don't actually know what is going on with you. Like, are you enjoying this, or are you being haunted?
She looked like she was enjoying it a little too much.
Is
this the start to her porn career or something? This
Wow.
is multiple TV shows, multiple movies now. I've seen her almost in a porn direction.
She pretty much wants to be a porn star, I think, at this point.
She was moaning in the first 10 seconds of this film like uncontrollably.
Yes.
And then she gets absolutely sucked off at the very end. It's like maybe she is going for a porn career. I don't really know.
Who knows?
Her acting was good though. Like, let's not take away from her acting, her portrayal of the character, where they were leading with her whole character, like at the very end of the movie where her character was leading towards. All of that was done pretty much perfectly, I'd say.
And like the still shots that Robert Eggars does of her face, like in the black and white almost, is incredible. You can tell that he's doing that to, one, reference the original 1922 silent film, but also to go for that vibe that we know what Dracula is. You know, Dracula, he comes in the dark of night. It's all about shadows. He can't move in the daylight. And so Robert Eggars sort of used that lighting and that colouring as a way to show, like, this is a vampire-themed Dracula movie. And the still shots of her face, I mean, she really knows how to use her face to tell like a million words without actually saying anything.
Finally, is there a movie that we've watched where every character isn't cut and polished? Every character doesn't look like they've been 4K'd, edited to be literally the next, Vogue model. Finally, there is a movie where everyone kind of looks like gaunt. Everyone looks like they're just terrified. They look like they haven't slept for months. They really captured the year that they were in, the attention to detailing in, the background, the set designs, the costume designs. All of that was literally flawless watching this. And then also going on to some of the characters, half of them have like no hair. Most of them have shit comb-overs, and that attention to detail is the main takeaway from me in this whole film, was finally there's a movie that feels real, that doesn't feel like it was, cut and polished so much where it's to the nth degree and now all Hollywood is going to take it over. I enjoyed a lot of that aspect of this film, a lot of that.
And not just Lily's acting deserves praise in this movie. I mean, Bill Skarsgard, like we said from the beginning, his acting in this was just incredible. Like, his voice acting was unbelievable.
It is a black omen to journey in poor health.
I also loved Ralph Ineson. His voice in any movie that he's in is great, but it's perfectly made to be in a movie that's old money, that's old-timey, set in the 1700s, 1600s, talking about black plagues, talking about spirits and ghosts and vampires. His voice just on the screen, immediately as soon as you hear it, you're like, this guy knows what he's talking about, and it comes from the fact that his voice is so goddamn deep. That you do immediately, when you hear that voice, you go, oh yeah, I am in like 1775, like Jack the Ripper is still alive. Willem Dafoe, you can't say enough about this guy. Always looking fresh to death. Even in a movie that's set all this time ago and he's a crazy scientist, he still looks fresh to death. Now, his accent's so strong that it's sort of hard for him to find, he sounds like he's got that old money Britishness, but it's also that Willem Dafoe's in the background. I think Russell Crowe struggles with the same thing. Their accent's so strong that sometimes you hear it, you go, it sort of takes you out of it a little bit. Like, it takes you into like, today, you think like he's sort of just Willem Dafoe. But it doesn't take away from the fact that his acting in this was incredible as well. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, that man has to have the greatest recovery from tanking his career of all time. 3 weeks ago, he brings out Kraven the Hunter, worst movie of all time. And then within 3 weeks, he brings out the movie of the year. He needs to be studied for The Resurrection, because that has to be the quickest career death of all time. Because my man's back. And he knows how to act.
That's the thing, though. That's what saves him. You see him in Craven, you're like, I fucking absolutely hate this. Go check out our review on that if you want to get the full scope.
Facts.
And then if you watch him in this, you're like, the man's back. That's what saves him, though. It's the amazing acting from Aaron Taylor Johnson. And he's like a chameleon, just like Bill Skarsgård in here. And Willem Dafoe. Almost everyone. All like chameleons. They can just adapt to any situation that they're in. And the character that they play, they actually play the character. Thank God they're finally doing the things that we want them to do instead of playing themselves in movies.
Which is something that Robert Eggars really gets out of people when he makes movies. He goes the extra mile where he's trying to create a full narrative for you to get immersed in. And like this movie, you do. You just feel like watching this movie. This is Dracula from back in the day. This is the Dracula that we used to watch on TV. This is the Dracula that your parents or your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents used to be scared of watching, where silent films were a thing and they were able to create this mysticism around Dracula using shadows, using lighting, using flickering lights, candles. This movie had all that vibe about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially with Dracula. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with him. You just need to use what we know so much about him. He's been the scariest character forever.
Yeah, it pioneered horror almost, in a way.
Literally.
Didn't it? So watching Nosferatu now and seeing all the homage that was paid back, like such as Geordie's already mentioned, the cinematography, like there were certain scenes where Nick Holt would go out into a crossroads in pitch black wilderness of like, or see all forest, and it's just a crossroads, and you see darkness, and it almost makes you feel and lulls you into a state of like you're dreaming. And it takes you to the castle, which is even attention to detail here, is that where Vlad the Impaler was actually held captive for a little bit, and this was in, I think, Transylvania is where he was held. They even went to the extent of, building the correct sets. And that's really translated on the screen watching this. You just really felt like all of it was really well taken care of. And also, when I was watching this, I was still confused. Where the fuck is Bill? I didn't see Bill this entire time. You kind of know exactly what Bill looks like. And I can tell you, throughout this, I didn't recognize him one bit. The only thing that I noticed about Bill was those fucking eyes. When he has those weird Pennywise eyes that go everywhere, I go, there he is. That's exactly where I know Bill is.
And also his 6'8" frame.
When he stands up from the contract signing, he literally takes up all the screen.
Yeah.
The man's aura is unmatched. He is fucking gigantic. And Nick Holt's not a small dude. He's like 1.9 or something, right? Yeah. And this guy's 1.9. Yeah, just towers over him.
And the other thing that looked great in this movie was the costumes as well. I mean, Nick Holt was fresh to death in this. I want whatever jacket that he was wearing, but also the way Aaron Taylor Johnson's character looked, the way his wife looked, the way that they looked sort of rich and old money and they had wealth. So there was different aspects of this movie that just looked great. The cinematography was perfect, I think, of this movie.
As a point as well for people to know, if you're not really massive cinema heads, I think if you watch this, you'll notice the pacing is a little jumpy, but it does work in its weird way. But if you're not kind of like a casual viewer, if you watch action films or something like that constantly, this kind of won't be for you. This is more of a slower pace and really telling a direct story and also paying homage to something. So I think if you are just a normal viewer, you might not really like this, but you should, because there's so many other things in this that you will enjoy. So as always, we give these reviews a rating. I think I'm going to rate this like one of the highest movies I've ever rated, probably a 9.5 5, maybe. This is a really good film to go see. If it's still out in the cinema near you, definitely go see it this weekend.
Yeah, this movie was great. It was interesting. It was different. I didn't really know much about the original Nosferatu, but I think everyone knows Dracula, the way that he's portrayed on screen, the way he's been portrayed throughout life is just like a cool character. One that always is like vampires. They're just so interesting and they're always just like in the back of your mind. No matter what they are, they always considered scary, except for Twilight. I highly recommend seeing this movie. And look, Robert Eggers, the man is quickly becoming one of the best directors for this sort of film in Hollywood. Go see any of his movies if you haven't seen them.
Exactly. Backlog that shit. Just like backlog all of our reviews. Go watch all those as well. Anyway, guys, it's been another NCut movie review. Peace, we out.
Peace.
NCut.